Prototype Apple devices are often different from production hardware, most commonly with minor changes such as an unreleased device color, having development-fused hardware, or even something as simple as having extra stickers from the factory on them. While all that stuff can be pretty fun, none of it compares to this iPod Touch prototype. Hello everyone, Apple Demo here, and today we're going to be taking a look at an incredibly special prototype device. Today, we're going to look at an iPod Touch first generation dev board. As you can clearly see, this iPod Touch is no ordinary prototype. While there's many names for device configuration like this, such as breakout board or exploded board, the name that Apple uses is dev board. Prototype Apple dev boards like this one are used for advanced hardware testing and debugging, featuring many additional I/O ports that can be used to interface with the board. Additionally, switches have the ability to enable and disable certain things such as debugging features, the device's mode, and even change things like the device's model. To name just some of the additional I/O ports, this iPod Touch dev board has two 30-pin dock connectors on the bottom. The only other Apple prototype that has been seen with two dock connectors was the iPad dual dock prototype that had been shown off a few years back. The prototype iPod Touch dev board also has an S-video port for mirroring the iPod's screen output onto an external display, such as a TV. And this iPod Touch also has two headphone jacks, one for line in and one for line out. There's also a mini USB port. Yeah, I never thought we'd see that on an Apple product, but this is actually used for interfacing with the iPod Touch through serial, or to say it in an easier way. Essentially, this just allows you to communicate with the iPod. And there exists numerous switches to modify where this iPod Touch dev board is configured to receive power through. But now, for the part you've all been waiting for. Does this iPod Touch dev board work? Well, let's find out. The answer is almost. You may have noticed the screen of this iPod briefly flash on, but then turn back off. That's because this iPod is currently stuck in DFU/recovery mode. Nothing's directly wrong with the board, but it is missing something. While conventional iPod Touch models don't have removable storage, this iPod Touch dev board does. Unfortunately, I didn't actually receive the storage card with this iPod. Currently being shown on screen is what it most likely would have looked like. And without this card, there's not really a lot that I can do with the iPod. Now, theoretically, as this iPod Touch does have space where a new storage chip could be hard soldered on, it could be possible for me to solder on a new storage chip and put the appropriate software onto this iPod to get it to run. However, I believe that doing such a thing would very much be modifying the history behind it. And to be honest, just kind of ruin the whole prototype mystique as it's been meddled with. Not to mention, soldering on a new chip always holds a risk of potentially damaging the board. So for now, I'm just going to keep it as it is. If we remove the screen, we can get a good look at the iPod Touch's, we could say, the main part of the logic board. This is where many of the chips for the actual iPod Touch are, just like on a normal iPod Touch logic board. But of course, with all the extra I/O, it's possible to debug every one of the chips on the logic board. Now, let's take a look at the other side of the iPod Touch board. It looks a lot less populated than the other side, but there's still plenty to see here, namely the CPU of this iPod Touch. This prototype iPod Touch has a Samsung branded CPU that was manufactured on January of 2007. This means that it was manufactured over 7 months before the iPod Touch first generation was officially released, and 5 months before even the original iPhone was available for purchase. This is important because the iPod Touch shares a lot of hardware similarities with the original iPhone. And speaking of original iPhones, a rather interesting note is that the CPU of this iPod Touch was made on the same week as the red M68 original iPhone logic board prototype that was shown a few years ago. However, of course, the iPod Touch first generation was released after the original iPhone had been released, theoretically making the board that I have earlier in terms of development than the red M68 logic board. With everything considered, this must be one of, if not, the best prototype Apple devices that I own. It's unbelievable that a device like this can still exist, and I'm extremely glad that I can preserve this board as it sure as hell deserves it. Thank you for watching my video, and I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did like it, I actually have an entire prototype playlist on my channel which is currently being shown. Please also consider leaving a like and maybe even subscribe to my channel. Anyways, I hope you have a great day.